Hey man, let's kill a lie that's been forced down your throat since you were a kid. Society, media, even your family, they all push the same idea. If you don't have a woman by your side, you're incomplete. Like there's something wrong with being alone. Like a man without a girlfriend or a wife is just floating through life aimlessly. But here's the hard truth. They don't want to admit single men are happier than most people think. And in many cases, they're more fulfilled, more focused, and more free than the men who traded their peace for companionship. You've been told that happiness is found in someone else's arms, but let me tell you, real peace begins the moment you stop trying to build your life around another person's emotional roller coaster and start building it around your own unshakable foundation. The world makes it seem like being single is some kind of failure, like you're lonely, like you're missing out. But what they don't tell you is how many men are silently suffering inside relationships that rob them of their identity. How many guys are walking around with fake smiles, drained spirits, and no direction, all because they gave up their purpose to play house with someone who doesn't even understand them. These aren't love stories, these are quiet prisons. And while everyone's posting cute couple pictures, nobody talks about the compromises, the emotional manipulation, the passive aggression, the constant pressure to be something they're not. That's not happiness, brother. That's emotional captivity. Single men don't have to ask permission to be themselves. They don't need to check in before making a decision. They don't need to explain why they're focused on their career, why they're hitting the gym late, why they want to travel solo, or why they need space. They move how they want to move. They wake up when they choose, eat what they want, sleep in silence, and walk in peace. And that freedom, that's not something to be pitied, it's something to be respected, because peace is the highest currency a man can hold, and most men in relationships have traded it away just to feel accepted. There's this false narrative that says a man isn't a real man unless he has a woman, that if you're single, you must be broken, bitter, or undesirable. But let me tell you what's really happening. A lot of men are waking up to the game, waking up to the expectations that never stop growing, waking up to the reality that being a good man isn't good enough anymore. You provide, you protect, you show up, and still, you get tested, questioned, compared, and sometimes replaced. So instead of walking blindly into emotional chaos, some men are choosing a different path, a path of solitude, growth, discipline, purpose. And that path is starting to look a lot more appealing than the illusion of love built on conditions. Single men get to stay dangerous. You know what I mean by that? Dangerous in the best way. Focused, sharp, not domesticated, not dulled down. They keep their edge because their time is their own. Their priorities aren't diluted by trying to manage someone else's emotions. They read more, train harder, think deeper, build more. They develop a presence that doesn't need validation. They walk into a room not looking for approval, but radiating confidence from the inside out. And that, my brother, is the kind of energy that shifts the entire dynamic. You're not chasing women, you're becoming the man they can't stop watching. One of the greatest lies we've been told is that happiness is tied to partnership, that to be whole, you need someone to complete you. But the happiest men I've ever met were complete before love ever entered the picture. They didn't need love to feel alive, they already were. And that's why, when they chose to be with someone, they did it from abundance, not desperation. That's the difference. Single men who master themselves become dangerously selective. They don't take whatever they can get, they evaluate, they test, they watch, and if it doesn't align with their values, they keep it moving. That's power. Let's talk money. Most single men don't even realize how much financial freedom they have until they see the other side. Relationships cost, emotionally, mentally, and yes, financially. Every dinner, every date, every weekend trip, every emotional meltdown you have to clean up with money, it adds up. Single men though, they reinvest, they save, they build. They allocate their energy into things that multiply, businesses, investments, skills, not emotional sinkholes. And before you know it, that quiet guy everyone called lonely is now living in a high-rise, driving what he wants, traveling when he wants, because he kept his circle tight and his priorities tighter. Now I'm not saying relationships are bad, but what I am saying is this: they're not for every man, especially not for the man still building himself. the man still discovering who he is, the man with vision. That man has no business getting tied up in an emotional storm before his foundation is set. Because the moment you center your life around a woman before you've mastered yourself, you're already off balance. And any woman who doesn't understand that, she's not worth your time anyway. Single men get to keep their mission front and center. No distractions, no compromises, just pure focus. And when you're building something big, something real, you need that. You need uninterrupted silence. You need space to fail, to experiment, to evolve. That's something most men in relationships don't get to experience. They're too busy managing another person's reactions, negotiating for time, or walking on eggshells. But the single man, he's building in the dark, laying bricks while the world sleeps. And when his time comes, they'll all ask how he did it. The answer? He stayed single long enough to get dangerous. Solitude isn't loneliness, it's self-respect. It's emotional discipline. It's a man saying, I'm not gonna fill my life with noise just to avoid silence. Because in that silence, a man meets himself. He faces his demons, his insecurities, his desires. He refines his code. And when a man has faced all that alone and survived it, there's not a woman on this earth who can manipulate him again, because he's not afraid to walk alone. That's where the real strength comes from. And that's why so many women chase men who don't chase them. Because somewhere inside, they feel that strength, that sovereignty, that quiet self-respect. Let's talk about peace, because that's what most men are really after. Not attention, not constant validation, not even sex, if we're being honest. What most men truly crave is peace. And do you know what's more peaceful than not having to decode mixed signals, chase texts, manage someone's mood swings, or apologize for being misunderstood? Being single, being centered, having a day that starts and ends exactly how you want it to. No unnecessary drama, no chaos disguised as passion, just you, your thoughts, your purpose, and your progress. It's not just happiness, it's healing. And most men never even taste it because they've been brainwashed into thinking peace is lonely. You know what else? Single men get to keep their standards. When you're single, you don't tolerate nonsense just to avoid being alone. You don't justify disrespect just because you're emotionally invested. You don't bend your frame to keep someone who isn't meeting your needs. You hold the line. You stay rooted in your values. Because you're not afraid of losing something. You've already proven to yourself that you can thrive alone. And when you can walk away from anything that doesn't serve your peace, brother, you're no longer a man, you're a fortress. Single men also get to keep their friends. And that might sound small, but think about how many men disappear the moment they enter a relationship. They stop showing up, stop checking in, stop being present for their brothers. Why? Because their entire world becomes a woman. And the moment that woman pulls away, they're left with nothing. No tribe, no support, just isolation. But single men who value brother, who stay plugged into their circle, who keep investing in relationships that build them, they create a network that protects them, strengthens them, and calls them higher. That's real wealth. Here's another truth they won't admit. Freedom is intoxicating. Being able to leave town on a whim, pursue your wildest idea, switch careers, or spend a whole day in your thoughts, uninterrupted, is a luxury. Most men don't even know they've surrendered. Single men live in a state of pure possibility. They can reinvent themselves without permission. They can try and fail without having to explain it. And that level of freedom, that's where the breakthroughs happen. That's where men evolve into something rare. Something women eventually chase when they realize they can't find it in the average man who's been tamed. And let's not pretend that emotional independence isn't attractive. When a man doesn't need a woman to feel good about himself, when he's not checking his phone every 2 minutes, hoping for validation, when he's not obsessed with what she's thinking or doing, that man has leverage. He can walk into a room and make eye contact with any woman and not flinch. Why? Because he has nothing to lose. His self-worth isn't hanging on her response. He doesn't care if she's impressed, because he already impresses himself. That's the kind of man women gravitate toward. And ironically, that's usually the man who's not even looking. Let's talk about energy, because the single man owns his entirely. When you're not constantly drained by emotional highs and lows, when you're not pouring into someone who barely gives back, when you're not carrying someone else's expectations, you get to channel that energy into yourself, into your fitness, your business, your creativity, your vision, and the compound effect of that, it's unreal. While most people are distracted by relationship drama, you're stacking wins in silence, and one day they'll look up and realize the guy they called lonely became unreachable. And here's the truth. You need to hear most men aren't afraid of being single. They're afraid of being with themselves. That's why they chase meaningless flings. That's why they beg for attention. That's why they tolerate disrespect. They'd rather be in a relationship with chaos than face the stillness of solitude. But when you stop fearing yourself, when you face your thoughts, confront your shadows, and learn to sit in silence, you become invincible. You no longer run from life. You embrace it. And that kind of inner stability, that's what sets you apart from every emotionally dependent man she's ever met. Let's not forget about time. Time is the one resource you can never get back. And single men control every minute of it. They wake up on their terms, plan their schedules based on their priorities, sleep when they want, think without distraction, create without being interrupted. That kind of autonomy is priceless. Because while other men are arguing over text messages and trying to decode passive aggression, the single man is mastering his schedule. And over years, that time compounds. He outpaces everyone around him, not because he's smarter, but because he was free to move. Another underrated advantage of being single, you never settle. You don't date someone just because you're bored. You don't lower your standards just to escape loneliness. You wait, you build, you stay committed to the vision, and in doing so, you attract women who are genuinely aligned, not just convenient. You don't enter relationships out of fear. You enter them from abundance, and that's how you avoid the slow death most men experience, married to someone they never truly respected, trapped in a life they built just to check a box. You, on the other hand, you chose freedom first, and that changed everything. So the next time someone tries to shame you for being single, smile. Not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you know something they don't. You know the quiet power of solitude, the peace of not being pulled in every direction, the focus of a man building something real, the freedom to walk away from anything that doesn't serve your mission. That's not loneliness, that's not weakness, that's mastery. You're not single because no one wants you. You're single because you've decided to want yourself first. And that, my brother, is the foundation of a life no one can take from you.